Hello, beautiful people. Now, you've all seen this, okay? We all have. And normally, do I care what medication people take? Capital H, no. It is not my business. The only reason we got to go over this list, Gypsy is telling everyone that Claudine Blanchard had medical abuse toward Gypsy and forced medications on her that she did not medically need. And these medications are suggested to be very powerful, strong, and even rotted Gypsy's teeth, according to her testimony. So we're going to go over this list. Do I want to? No, but we got to do it. So the first one we have here is lactulose. Now, girl probably had some bowel issues. TMI, but she had to take bowel medication to help her when she was constipated. Lactulose is for constipation. Second, we have fluticasone propionate. This is an inhaler, and it's a steroid inhaler. Again, it's very standard for people who have asthma. This is a standard medication given to people who get asthma attacks. So it's a preventative to prevent the number of attacks they do get. And we do know Gypsy's asthma is real. So there are hospital photos where she has that mask on her face and she's looking like Darth Vader with that mask. And the irony is that photo comes up anytime that someone's mentioning her cancer. It's like, no, that is not for cancer. That is for asthma. Now, a doctor would have listened to her lungs. They would have used a stethoscope, and you cannot fake that wheezing sound that a doctor would have heard using a stethoscope. So if Gypsy came in and Dee was forcing her to pretend to have asthma, they would have just been like, well, your lungs are clear and your oxygen's, at 100%. So we're good. Just stay here for a little while. We'll observe you and then you can go home. They would have not given her this treatment. So the fact that she had the treatment in the hospital proves she did in fact have asthma. Hydramine diphenhydramine. Wow, say that 4 times in a row. That's basically, it's a long name for Benadryl. It's Benadryl, guys. Again, over the counter. So we have Zyrtec, which is over the counter, which is listed. We have Benadryl over the counter, which is listed. And the loratadine is the Zyrtec. So we have Zyrtec, which is loratadine. And we have hydramine diphenhydramine, which is Benadryl. So 2 of the medications on her prescription list are actually over the counter, just allergy medications that they have available for children. Like they have children's Zyrtec, they have children's Benadryl, for what I can gather. And yeah, it's just over the counter. Now, why was it prescribed? Well, Dee Dee probably was looking to save money. If you can get your doctor to prescribe Tylenol, then and your insurance pays it, covers it at zero cost, why would you spend $50 on a bottle of Tylenol? Zyrtec, same thing. Like if she can get it for free by having her doctor prescribe it, Zyrtec, why would she go to the Walgreens or CVS and buy it for like $23 or $25? So they probably had it prescribed so girl could get it for free. All right. Next we have, what is this? Prednisolone. Okay. Prednisone is a steroid. Now, the next medication on this list is Bactrim. We all know Bactrim's like an antibiotic. If you've ever had an infection, ear infection, lung infection, Bactrim is an antibiotic. Now, it would make sense that prednisone and Bactrim would have been prescribed to Gypsy at the same time if she had a sinus infection, had pneumonia, had an ear infection, and we know she had those ear problems. So it's more likely that Gypsy had an ear infection at some point, and they had to give her an antibiotic along with a steroid to get rid of it. It's kind of weird that they're listing it on her medication list, though, because we all know there ain't no doctor in America prescribing an antibiotic for 30 days or for like every day. No, not happening. So we've gone over every medication on this list. The only one that we need to cover now is the diazepam. Now, there's only one medication on this list that kind of supports a theory of possibly Gypsy did not need it. Actually, possibly 2. So there's only 2 medications. There's the diazepam, which is an anti-anxiety. It's more of for if there's an actual attack happening, like an anxiety attack, this would be given to treat the attack itself. But then there was a preventative seizure medication given as well, which is Keppra. And this is preventative for seizures or to treat seizures. And doctors' notes conclude that Gypsy's seizures were completely controlled by this medication. She was actually no longer having seizures and she was growing out of them. So the medication was working and doing its job. The Keppra was. So those who believe that Gypsy was medically abused, if there's anyone watching this and you believe Gypsy was medically abused, we're all adults. We all have different opinions. We're going to respect your opinion. I will respect your opinion. The only medication on this list, though, that supports this opinion is the diazepam. It's the only medication on this list that's not over the counter, that's not to treat like an ear infection, that's not for asthma, and that isn't for seizures. Everything else fits into one of those categories. So diazepam kind of looks like the one that's out of place. However, when we observed Gypsy last year, she's on lives and she is wearing a white top and she says that she's having freakouts and she's pregnant and that the hormones are just making her have these freakouts. And she jumps out with her hands when she says it, like, I'm having freakouts, girl. And these pregnancy hormones are just getting me. This is the attitude of her sharing this story when the camera crew's there and they're like, what's going on in your life? What's new in your life that we can share with the public? And that's what she chooses to share is she's having freakouts and they're big ones. And they're happening a lot because she's pregnant. Now, if your hormones are amplifying your freakouts, hormones are intense and they're at their highest levels when you're a teenager. If she were a teenager and her hormones are amplified, her freakouts would also be amplified. Is it appropriate to claim that an adult who has passed away, who cannot share their story, who cannot defend their truth, is it appropriate to yell claims of medical abuse because of one medication on this list? The diazepam. This is the only medication that you could possibly say maybe she didn't need it. We were not there. We do not know how bad her freakouts were. We have no idea how intense they were or how long they lasted. However, I will say that many people observed Gypsy being emotional. Many people did. Emotions are high when you're a teenager. We've all been there. We've all been there. Boys too, they're really hormonal around that age. I know when I was a teenager, things bothered me that don't normally bother me. Maybe my mom and dad, being slow older people are just like, oh gosh, can you just go a little faster? And I kept that inside. Okay. I definitely controlled. But we all have those things as a teenager that we're like very emotional over or that affect us more deeply. I remember one time I got a really bad haircut. My hair was cut like 3 inches shorter than what I wanted. I cried for like a whole hour afterward. Would I do that now as an adult? Heck no. So, we have to look at this from a lens of she was having freakouts as an adult in her 30s. Yeah, maybe she did need it. Okay, then we take Keppra. This is that seizure medication. Does Keppra rot your teeth? No, it doesn't. Was Keppra controlling her seizures? Yes. Does this medication list support claims of medical abuse? In my opinion, no, it does not. Now, I do respect others' opinions, and if you feel it does, then surely you can only use 2 medications on this list to support this theory, and that would be the Keppra and the diazepam. All of the other medications on this list are necessary and are over the counter and are only used in short-term periods, like, for instance, the antibiotic. She may have sometime in her life been prescribed an antibiotic for an infection. That doesn't mean that Dee was giving it to her every day. Now, Gypsy Rose Blanchard was in an interview in the Prison Confessions, and she revealed that she had a feeding tube, and that the worst part of the feeding tube is that while she was sleeping, her mom could possibly put medications in her feeding tube without her even knowing. Okay, that sounds terrible, right? I mean, it does. However, if you're asleep and your mom comes and tries to touch your belly, everyone's ticklish, right? you would wake up. You would feel your belly. Your belly's a very sensitive area. If someone is moving the covers, they would have to come over to your side of the bed. And if Gypsy and Dee shared a bed, maybe she liked how comfortable her mom's bed. Her mom had a bigger bed. Maybe she liked sleeping in there. And we know that the Harry Potter, that lights that went over the bed were those Harry Potter lights and it looked like the little telephone thing, the telephone booth. They had that over the bed, and that was Gypsy's obsession, was Harry Potter. So these lights were hung over the bed, and those lights were there when the crime happened. It's possible that Gypsy was in her mom's bed all the time. Now, she had her own bed. She had her own room. So that was her decision, obviously. If she's laying on her mom's bed, her mom walks over. She would have had to move the blankets, lift Gypsy's clothing to access the feeding tube, and then she would have had to remove the cap off the feeding tube. Any one of those three things would have woken Gypsy up. It is literally, that is, when we hear that, it sounds so terrible. Oh, your mom, she would have put medications in your feeding tube when you weren't even awake and you had no idea what she was giving you. But when you look at this from logic, either the blanket moving would have woken her up, someone touching her ticklish belly and moving her shirt would have woken her up, and surely someone removing the cap off the feeding tube, it's actually kind of challenging to pull off that cap. The cap is meant to stay tight. It's meant to make sure that none of Gypsy's fluids in her stomach would come out of the tube and smell funky and get on her clothing. So, you don't want to touch the liquid from a stomach. That cap is meant to not just easily come off. So her mom would have had to do all that and then remove the cap, and then Gypsy's going to stay asleep. You're telling me girl's not going to wake up? To those who live with Gypsy now, if you want to test this theory, while Gypsy's asleep, see if something does wake her up. If you move the covers, does she wake up? If you move her pillow, does she wake up? If you try to tickle her, is she ticklish? Is she a light sleeper or is she a heavy sleeper? These are important questions for the family to ask because they are living with Gypsy. And if they truly believe Gypsy's story and her testimony, by all means, do so. However, you are living with someone who committed a terrible crime. Just remember, you're living with someone who is totally okay with living with someone while planning their horrific demise for more than 2 years. In that case, best of luck and much love to everyone watching this video. I look forward to reading your comments. See you later. Ciao.